At this time, the August 6, 2026 meeting of the Ventnor City Planning Board is now in session. Please note that this meeting is being held at the Lafayette School instead of Commission Chambers. No notice has been given of that to that effect. This meeting has been being held in accordance with the due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. At this time, we'll rise and salute the flag. Right side. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this evening, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to those of you who have come out to the attention of tonight. I stand with due respect to you and the effort you made in the American way to participate in your community government and be a representative citizen and take your role as a responsible citizen. I applaud you. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Mayor Kribel?
Here.
Commissioner Landgraf?
Here.
Joe Iannizelli?
Here.
Jay Cook?
Here.
Dan Smith III?
Here.
Mike Wiesen?
Here.
Peter Taco?
Here.
Tim Coop?
Here.
Greer Gaskell?
Here.
Wendy Bartlett?
Here.
John Van Dyne?
Here.
Absent are Lorraine Salata and Jessica Stilley.
On tonight's agenda, let's see, first of all, do you have any minutes to adopt? Okay, the minutes are having completed prior. So on tonight's agenda, the issue that is being discussed, and it's the sole issue that will be discussed this evening, is that of the continuation of the master plan. That it's a draft at this point in time. And this is an introduction to, I guess, the public and discussion with all of you. And you have, it'll be presented by Mr. Jim Rotella, who is a planner and a consultant to our city. He's worked with the city many times. He's eminently familiar with this particular city as well. And our discussion will be limited to that area. So all of you know is that this evening, there will be no adoption of any plan at all at this time. There will be further discussion. This is a draft that's being presented, and then we'll take it from there and go and make the necessary changes that we need to do based on information we get and further board discussion. But it's not going to be rushed through, and it's going to be given its due process. So, and this board is been empowered and is somewhat unique. It's the first time that a board like this is sat before the city. This board was actually assembled, zoning and planning boards were assembled together in 2016, and they were both combined as one board. So we have members that of both boards, the original boards that were here, and new members that have been appointed. And I can assure you, there's hundreds of years' experience on this board with the City of Ventnor itself. And everyone here is a resident of the City of Ventnor. And they take everything to heart. And with that, they perform their duties as volunteers and at all times are concerned with the rights of others and the rights of the city. With that, Mr. Rotella, I'd like to introduce you, and please proceed with the actual presentation of your program.
Jim, this is technically a formal public hearing on our Master Plan Reexamination Report. At some point in the future, our board's going to have to take action. So, in reading the rules, I think we should swear in Mr. Rotella. I'll get part of the professional, Mr. McCarn. When we get to the public, when we get there, you'll have to come up, state your name, and I'll just swear you real quick. It won't take long. So, Mr. Rotella, please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you'll give this evening and throughout the hearings on the Master Plan Reexamination will be the truth.
Yes, I do.
Okay, Roger. Mr. Khan, you swear affirm the testimony you give this evening throughout these hearings will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for coming out. My name is Jim Rutella from Rutella Associates. We've had the pleasure, as Chairman alluded to, of working with the City of Ventnor for 15 years.
Pardon me, can everyone hear?
Everything's okay?
But you can move up a little bit because there are exhibits up front and you might want to see them. So if you want to move, I would suggest you move now.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Jim, could you bring the microphone closer to you?
The master plan process is really a consensus building process. We've been working now for a year with the planning board, with the planning board committee, and many others to basically build this master plan re-exam. It's required every 10 years by law. If you do not do a master plan re-exam, you lose your zoning power. So it's pretty significant. And with the master plan re-exam, there are 4 major criteria for things that have to be covered during the process. First, we examine the major problems and objectives that have developed since the last plan was adopted. We discuss changes and trends that existed over that time. We put together various assumptions and significant changes through the planning process over 10 years, and we recommend specific changes. And so this plan will cover those 4 topics. As I mentioned at the onset, we've had many meetings. We've had 3 planning board meetings where the plan's been adopted, discussed as a draft. There have been revisions after each meeting. We had a master plan subcommittee who met 4 times, and this is a group of the planning board, 3 or 4 members and their professionals who have input into the plan, and we went through things in more detail. We met with the Ventnor Business Association. We met with the Ventnor School Board. We provided information regarding the school and the student body. We met with the County Regional Planning Association, or Regional Planning Department. Obviously, you have county roads in the community. The county is responsible for the emergency management plan on a regional standpoint. We do a number of things with the county, so the county is an important stakeholder. We met with the adjoining municipalities. We met with DCA, Department of Community Affairs in the state, who provides services and provides funding to the city. Department of Transportation, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and FEMA. We work with FEMA on all of our projects. You'll see that there's some maps here regarding the floodplain, and we'll get into some detail about what's changing there and how that impacts land use in the city. So this is a process that's been ongoing, and will continue. As the chairman said, it'll continue as a result of today's meeting. Once we have your comments, we'll discuss them with the planning board, make additional revisions, make that document public, and then eventually go through an adoption. So first off, let's talk about the demographic changes. There's a lot of change, not just in Ventnor, but in the entire shore area.
Jim?
Yes.
Excuse me, the board is going to sit down so we can watch the presentation with you.
I'm sorry.
We're going to go down on
Very
the,
good.
we're going to sit in the front row so we can see the presentation. Okay, to touch on demographic changes that have happened in the last 10 years or longer. Population has dropped 29% since 2020. In the last decade, which is really the area that we're looking at as far as part of this plan, school age population dropped 25%.
The number of residents under 54 years of age dropped 31%. The number of residents 55 years or older increased 14%. We're seeing an older population. Poverty rate dropped 3.6%. And the area is more highly educated. The population as a bachelor's degree has increased about 7.4%. So these numbers are all from the U.S. Census and provides a good indication of trends. And trends are important as we look through, as we start to create a plan. A little bit about the regional economy. The regional economy obviously affects the city. The county labor force shrunk almost 19,000 jobs since 2010. A lot of that was a result of the closure of 4 casinos in Atlantic City and all the ancillary businesses that serve those facilities, as well as other job loss throughout the county. And that really hasn't recovered. We're still in decline as far as job creation. Employment and education and healthcare services continue to grow. Food and beverage obviously continues to grow as well. Large industrial sectors in the county are accommodations and food services, retail trade, healthcare, and education. So really, tourism-related jobs and eds and meds primarily. Accommodations and food services dropped sharply by 24%. This is primarily due, again, to the 4 casinos that closed in 2014. Healthcare and social assistance, professional and technical services, administrative support services, and construction services all grew countywide. Overall, the county is still a service-based economy. We've been trying to diversify Atlantic County, but we're actually becoming more of a tourist county. You see that throughout the county, even not only in the Barrier Islands, but on the mainland as well. We have the pleasure of providing planning services to Summers Point. More than half of the property owners in Summers Point do not live in Summers Point. Summers Point has really transitioned more to a second home and a resort community. And we're seeing that obviously in other communities as well in the mainland. Now, taking a closer look at just Ventnor's economic profile. Ventnor's economy employs about 1,400 jobs. 7.2% decrease since the last decade, just the city of Ventnor. The largest industrial sector is retail trade, accommodations and food services, education and healthcare, similar to the county. In the last decade, Ventnor has a strong move towards tourism-related jobs, things like food services and things of that nature. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Accommodation and food services more than doubled and became one of the largest sectors by 2023. This is partially due to the permitting liquor license in the city and the expansion of various restaurants and eateries. Several sectors have declined, including construction, healthcare, finance, and real estate. Data indicates a smaller, more concentrated local economy that is shifting towards seasonal and service-based economies. Again, this is not unusual. This is what we're seeing in all the Barrier Island communities. An interesting statistic, and this is really a tracking of real estate since COVID. Home prices are up 137% in Ventnor since COVID, since 2019. You'll see here in this comparison, we look at Philadelphia and the US, which has grown, but nothing near the type of growth that we've seen here in Ventnor. So talking about changes in the last decade, we've already touched on a few. Superstorm Sandy had a tremendous impact on our area and will continue to impact the area, especially in the area of land use and development. And we'll talk about that in more detail in a few minutes. The COVID pandemic had a huge impact, as we just saw, on the housing market. Basically, the New York, North Jersey market found Atlantic County. We find more dominance of that market throughout the Jersey Shore, but it certainly affected the real estate market in Atlantic County. National flood insurance has changed in the last, in 2024, and is about to change again. Next year, we are expecting that new flood maps will be released by FEMA, and again, that will have an impact on land use and other issues. And there's state changes coming. The state is putting forward new coastal regulations that were supposed to be adopted last month. Because of the involvement of the leadership in Lane County, your mayor, your commissioners, and elected officials throughout the county and throughout the Jersey coast, those regulations were delayed by 1 year. Now they're supposed to go into effect next July. The governor's promise is that they will take into account your issues, the local issues of the Jersey Shore, which were not really taken into account when these regulations were put together to begin with. The regulations that are being proposed will have a drastic impact on Ventnor and all the coastal communities. They are based on what would happen from a flood standpoint in the year 2100, 74 years from now, based on projections of what may happen. And they're very conservative. As a result of that, they require that homes be elevated an additional 4 feet in new construction. They're much more stringent on renovations and when homes need to be elevated. All the areas in the city would be covered by what's called an inundation zone, which would be a new flood zone that's 4 feet higher than the current flood zone. Every project in the city will require street review and approval, which is not the case now. And the long and short of this is these regulations will make living in Ventnor more expensive. The state, unfortunately, and Commissioner Landgraf has been very involved in this, as well as our senator and our assembly folks and everyone in Lane County. The state really doesn't understand that. And we are waiting for a meeting so that we can explain the impacts here. There's a false assumption that there's funding to elevate homes. We help residents of Ventnor get funding to elevate their homes. There's only been about 20 that have gotten a grant. And it costs an average of $250,000 today to elevate a home. If you're going to go up another 4 feet, it's going to be much more expensive. It has a huge impact on the working class residents of communities like that, because they won't be able to afford that. You have to upfront the money, you get reimbursed at the end of an elevation. But regardless, if these regulations go into effect, they will impact zoning throughout the city, because you have to look at where stairs are going to go, what the new setbacks are going to be, what the impacts will be from a height standpoint, and the aesthetics of the buildings, just a plethora of changes in your zoning ordinance. So certainly it's something that we need to track and need to be very aware of. So some major changes both nationally and locally that affect land use in Ventnor. Local changes in the last decade, Ventnor's been very aggressive in many ways. Ventnor has successfully received over $92 million in grant funds to do needed infrastructure throughout the city, lead service line replacement, road improvements, beach replenishment, various resiliency projects, and various other projects, park projects, and others. So the city's really should be complimented for that accomplishment. Ventnor Business Association was established, bringing the businesses together. Ventnor has 6 business districts. Having them speak as one voice and be involved is extremely important. Liquor license referendum allowed eateries to serve alcohol, which again created new growth in the city and new opportunities, making Ventnor a city that people want to visit and be part of. Providing tax payment for new residents allowed developments to continue without having a big impact on really having any impact on the real base. redevelopment plans were done in critical areas. You're certainly familiar with this. The Ventnor Shopping Center has gone through a tremendous change in the last few years. And that was really brought about by a redevelopment effort that allowed the developer to have some flexibility, allowed the city to have a lot more input into design and the aesthetics of the property. And now that's a thriving shopping center, which is a great accomplishment. Same thing with the movie theater in that area. Again, that went through a redevelopment process. Left unchecked devices, both of those facilities would probably still be unoccupied or totally occupied, not as thriving as they are today. So certainly a major accomplishment. So you did some changes as far as the look-back area or renovations, which is a FEMA requirement that allowed development to occur a little more readily. And the city added a number of major events, both the ski beach and on the beach, which again is a huge attraction for the city. So a lot's been done in the last decade from a positive standpoint. Getting to the recommendations, and there's 52 recommendations in the master plan. Again, this is something that was discussed by the committee and needs to be refined with your comments today, and others can be added. So it's not the end of the day right now, it's really the beginning. So your input's important. But I'll go through some of them. For residential development, we just talked about the zoning requirements in town. The zoning code in the city has been the same for probably the last 20 years for the most part. There's been minor changes, but not a lot of significant changes. If in fact the PAC rules, the new coastal rules go into effect next July, is going to require a wholesale review of the zoning requirements. And again, that'll also be a time to look at right-sizing zoning, given the developments happening in the community now. So that's a major recommendation that's coming up. Again, adopting development regulations to promote flood resilient development, which all ties into those regulations. Economic development, continuing to use redevelopment plans to encourage priority development. One of the challenges in any coastal community is preserving your commercial space. As I mentioned earlier, Ventnor is blessed to have 6 thriving commercial areas. What we see in coastal communities, and we work in coastal communities from Tom's River to Cape Bay, is that unfortunately the highest and best use is residential in a coastal community, and commercial areas and non-residential uses shrink over time. And in some cases they disappear in some communities. Certain districts disappear. In order to keep those areas, we have to be aggressive. And redevelopment plans is a way to be aggressive in a case-by-case basis, just like what happened at the theater property. It gives the city ability to control and manage the development, and gives the developers some flexibility in what they're going to plan to do. Continue to invest in the business sector. The city has been investing. The streetscape improvement in North Beach that was done after Superstorm Sandy is a great example. The city just received grant money to do streetscape improvements on Dorset Avenue. So it's the next project. There's been tree planting in the commercial area in the center of town. Those investments are important. They show the business community that the city cares, that makes it more attractive for visitors and residents, and stabilizes the commercial uses. It certainly is important. Continue to promote year-round tourism, which the city's done very well. But that's something that continues. And promoting regional tourism. Like it or not, our biggest industry in Manning County is tourism. And it's huge. It's $8.3 billion a year. That's what feeds a lot of the families. That's what keeps things going in the area. And for the first time last year, we are now starting to market our area as a region. And I give kudos to the Visit Atlantic City group. They really embraced this idea of regional tourism just like you see at the Outer Banks or Florida Keys or any other region. They really sell the whole area. And that's what is starting to happen here, which benefits everyone. And so we're starting to see more advertising and more positive stories about not just Atlantic City, but Ventnor, Margate, Longport, Down Beach communities in Cape May County, because it's all one part of one region. And you're going to see more of that, more regional tourism. So certainly that's a great step in the right direction. Waterfront amenities. You have a drawing here, a concept of the development of Ventnor West Eco Park. This is a park like no other. This couldn't happen anywhere else on Absecon Island, or for that matter, in Atlantic County or Cape May County, than in Ventnor. 140 acres of pristine area that is ideal for open space and recreation. I was telling some people earlier, we just completed a project in Cape May that is a waterfront boardwalk on the water, off the water, just meandering, which is what's proposed as part of this project. And it is, if you have a chance, it's at Lafayette Street Park, right next to Lafayette Street School in Cape May. It is gorgeous. And it is a huge attraction, and it really passes recreation, but something that provides an identity to the community, and is a huge improvement. So that's part of the Ventnor Eco Park concept, but certainly a signature project for Ventnor. Continuing to work with the Army Corps, FEMA, and DEP on breach replenishment and resiliency projects. The city has done an amazing job protecting Ventnor, both by sponsoring applications to help people raise their homes, but also doing bulkhead projects and other projects. We currently have applications in that are being positively reviewed for pump stations in Ventnor Heights, and also some improvements, resiliency improvements at Ski Beach. So it's an ongoing process, but certainly hardening the, really armoring the area around Ventnor is important going forward. Continuing to pursue funding to replace the boardwalk. The city has done a great job at moving that project forward, and there's more of that project, so that would be a priority. And enhancing Ski Beach, which is another jewel in the city. Community facilities, open space, and recreation. Continuing to improve parks and recreation. We've had some very enlightening meetings with Green Acres, and I think they're going to be on the city's team going forward. So we have a new funding source for park improvements in the future. So that's certainly a step in the right direction. Implementing a community forestry management plan that the city just adopted last year. By having a community forestry plan, qualify for funding for trees and for tree maintenance and other improvements. Tied to that is a designation as a Tree City USA, which also gives you a plus for this types of funding. And looking at this facility, as you go through the plan, you'll see, and we talked about earlier, there's been a significant drop in enrollment in school. Again, that's not unusual for a coastal community, and the trend is that will continue. This is a beautiful complex, and if there are ways to use it for other community services, then that's an opportunity. So looking forward, that would be that's a recommendation. Safer streets. The city has done a great job in addressing a number of things, synchronizing the signals on Ventnor Avenue, replacing signals for the county, now working on synchronizing signals on Atlantic Avenue, and continuing to make the city more accessible. Resiliency, we talked about this a little bit, we talked about it a little more. Obviously, pump stations and generators at critical facilities are important. We've been working with the county on Wellington Avenue. Wellington Avenue is a county road. Both West End and Atlantic City and Wellington and Ventnor are county roads. It's also the emergency access road in and out of Ventnor. It's not very accessible during major storms. So elevating that would be important. You may be aware that DOT is about to start a $50 million elevation project on Route 40 from West End Avenue to Pleasantville. So that issue is going to be addressed. It's just getting to that, to Route 40, where the improvements was needed on Wellington Avenue. Closing bulkhead gaps throughout the city and various specific areas. Providing public education. There's never, and I know the city just recently had a public gathering to talk about resiliency. It's always important to keep people involved and to keep them aware. Installing a citywide warning system to notify residents and visitors of issues. Again, assist homeowners to secure FEMA funding for home elevations and really to look at programs, new programs that would address people in the community, residents in the community that need funding up front to elevate their homes. And continuing to lead in the community rating system, which gives you here in Ventnor provides a 25% discount on your flood insurance. Not many communities have a 25% discount. So there's various things that your building department has to do in order to maintain that. Capital. We talked at the onset, the city has been working on lead service line replacement, certainly a public health issue, and priority for the state and federal government. Rehabilitating storm pipes on Fulton Avenue, implementing the city's drinking water, or improving the city's drinking water well, waterproofing and restoring City Hall, connecting a loop with a main CMUA to provide adequate water, especially in times of major issues. And these are all things that are included in the city's capital plan currently. A lateral replacement on Ventnor Heights sanitary sewer, improvements to the Fulton Avenue pump station, Lafayette Avenue sanitary pump station, and Lily Park sanitary pump station, and replacement of the sanitary sewer lines along Winchester Avenue. Coastal regulations, we've kind of touched on that. I think the important thing is the last one is to continue to work with our legislators to deal with not just the issues of the intercoastal waterway, but also the new regulations being proposed for the coastal area. This is our timeline. Time flies. We've been working on this project for a year now. We've had 3 public meetings with the planning board, and here we are in August, a public meeting to get your input. Our goal is to adopt a plan sometime in the fall. There's no rush. The fact that we're in this planning process protects the city zoning, so if it takes a couple extra months to do the adoption, then there's no loss to the city. So at this point, we're going to turn it over to you, and we'd like to hear your comments, and so we can make further refinements. If anybody is interested in making comments, if you could come up to the microphone.
The board's going to go back up to the dais, and we'll
And the board will go back up on the dais. If you can come down and just introduce yourself and give your address, and the solicitor will swear you in, and then you can provide comments.
Anyone like to make a comment? Please come forward. Be sworn.
Give us your name and address, please.
Catherine Van Dyne. Actually, my address is 422 North Essex in Margate. But
Kathy, can you bring it a little closer?
oh, sorry. How about now? Catherine Van Dyne, 422 North Essex Avenue in Margate.
All right, Ms. Van Dyne, please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes. I just had to thank everybody for a great job, and all the commissioners. I had a question with regard to
Everybody, pardon one second. Can everybody hear her?
A little closer to the microphone.
You take the mic out of the stand and hold it, please.
Jack, you're killing me. How about that?
That's better.
I had a question about a specific storm plan. If there's another event like a superstorm Sandy or a named hurricane or a big, a category 3 and up storm, is there anything in the master plan that addresses, okay, there's a storm coming, what does the average citizen do with regard to coordinating with the city officials? And is there a printed on the website plan to address what happens if there's a major storm and evacuation advice and advice about water, drinking water and things like that? I don't know whose category that is, but.
Great question.
That's a question for
Go
me.
ahead.
Thank you.
My name is Lieutenant Joe Angelli with the Ventnor City Fire Department. I'm also a deputy OEM, so that's really an OEM question. And we do have a reverse 911. We have a code. Does everyone know about the code red alert system? That's how we would notify the residents, number one. Number two, if you're given an evacuation order, please evacuate. Because if it gets too bad and the flooding gets too high and the wind gets too much, we can't respond. So, when we say evacuate, you must evacuate. We do have a shelter. St. James Memorial Hall is actually one of our shelters, but it's the last thing we want to do is open a shelter. Because as soon as we open a shelter, the very first day, we're planning on closing the shelter. So, to answer your question, I guess in a nutshell, is if you will be notified, the citizens of Ventnor have the code red, and if you're given the evacuation order, you must evacuate.
Just as a follow-up, as it relates to the master plan itself, is there a printed category or text that will be published with regard to, hey, this is what happens when there's a storm? And so much of the communication happens on social media where everybody's talking to each other on Facebook and nobody is taking the lead, on the website and in a planning structure of like.
Well, it will most definitely be on the website. Something to that extent, the county takes over.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the county AM. We have a local emergency operations center in Ventnor for all the down beach communities, Ventnor, Longport, Margate. The emergency operations center is actually on the second floor of the Ventnor Firehouse. We coordinate everything from there. It will most definitely be on the website. I mean, when something like this is going to happen, a catastrophic event, you will be notified. It's not necessarily a master plan thing. It's just because every storm is different. It's not like coming. So the whole thing is master plan. You really can't plan because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yes. So much of what's addressed with flooding and planning for events, but I don't see anything in the master plan with regard to an actual event
Joe,
and what happens after that. Thank you.
Commissioner Landgraf, Kathy?
Yeah.
Commissioner
Just
Landgraf
for-
has some comments on this as well.
I don't want to say it's apples and oranges, but it's apples and oranges. The master plan is for land use resiliency, to plan for those events, but it's not an evacuation plan. We're going to defer to OEM. When an event like that happens, actually the OEM coordinator, Chief Cahill, takes over the city. The mayor and I, he's telling us what to do at that point. So from that aspect, it's not related to this master plan document. Yes, we talk about resiliency. Yes, we talk about infrastructure and things of that nature in it. What that's for, and Jim knows this better than anybody, because he's also our grant writer, the guy responsible for getting that $92 million. You put those things in your master plan, this is what you weigh to DEP and EPA, and you say, hey, it's in our master plan. We should get this. And they look at that. That's why we put those things in these documents. So we can say, hey, look, we planned for this. We need this money. Great question. It's just not a little different document. And I think our OEM group we have a whole plan.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I know I've seen it at one point. That's something we should probably maybe put out, Mayor, if we could maybe look to that. And,
I'll just piggyback on that just to say how important the communication piece is. And I think to answer your question, we do have a document, a living document that we do Blackboard meetings on what the procedures are going to be and what the tabletop exercise is. But I don't want to minimize that, because I think that was a big I won't call it a failure, but it was not done to the best ability of communication with Superstorm Sandy. Somebody needed to take the lead a little better in that example. I think the city learned from that in the storms that happened afterwards. I think we've gotten better at that and documented it.
Jim? We do have resiliency in the master plan, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so we have a resiliency component in the master plan, and that's to build upon what we already have, as discussed by our commissioners and our mayor and so on. So we'll have the next question, please.
Just to add one more thing, the county, because again, when this happens, it's not just cities, it's regional, and it's the state as well. If you go on the county website, any county has a mitigation, has a mitigation plan. They have all the details, and they meet with the OEM coordinators on a bi-monthly basis to kind of prepare and to do run-throughs on what could happen when an event happens, not just a storm, but other types of hazard events. So it's continuous education. So there's a lot of information in that plan. That plan includes all the improvements that we're talking about, but it also includes what you do in your school. So it's constantly being revised. It's actually in the process of being revised right now. Next question.
Yes, sir. Please move
You
forward.
have to come up and give your name.
Gray shirt. Get close to that mic so we can all hear you.
Let me see. Good enough?
Yeah, it sounds
Very good.
good.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having this meeting. My name's Nicholas Moore. I live at 117 North Richards
Could you
Avenue.
Come back to that mic again.
117 North Richards Avenue in Ventnor.
Mr. Moore, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
It will be, yes.
Thank you.
I have a question relative to housing as we regentrify our neighborhoods. We're taking down 100-year-old homes and replacing them with substantially larger homes that my biggest concern for myself is our infrastructure is never going to change. The streets are the streets, the sewers are sewers, the water is the water. But the size of these homes that we're putting in, is there any restriction or standard for where you replace a 3-bedroom, one bathroom house with a 6-bedroom, 5-bathroom house with no additional parking in the design? When you do evaluate a property that comes in for a plan review, I'm concerned that the existing infrastructure is being overlaid against new work. And if you have 6 bedrooms in a house that used to have 3, it's obviously going to create a parking problem. If the design doesn't incorporate additional parking inside the curb line, it puts a strain on the entire neighborhood. Dan Smith lives on the same street I do. So he's well aware of the day-to-day traffic problems that he has in front of his own home. But on my street, they put in 2 brand new homes in the last year. Both, we call them McMansions. I'm more sure the rest of the neighbors have different names for them. But the design criteria doesn't seem to be incorporating parking to accommodate the specific size of these large homes on a street that's never had garages. They were just basically storerooms. But there's accommodations for 2 cars in every house. But now we're getting down to 2 cars in every house with 6 bedrooms as opposed to 3. So, obviously we're going to have some issues that you can't track with bed and breakfasts or VRBOs. But is the planning board looking at that when someone comes for a submission? Because I'm looking at curb cuts, we're actually losing parking because of curb cuts. Just a more evaluation on their standards being developed for this. Because our neighborhoods, people are buying homes, just knocking them down now. They're not interested, there's a huge interest in new homes created, and the cost is obviously very high. But that would be my concern as a resident that's been here for 26 years.
Yeah, it's a critical question, and one of the things that's going to probably change when new regulations go into effect for the coastal resiliency is all homes will have parking on the first floor. You can't occupy the first floor, and they're going to be elevated significantly higher than you are now. So that, in some ways, that's an accommodation for parking. But it also addresses your other issue as far as curb cuts and design.
You feel with a 4-foot higher elevation,
Right.
you can then say everybody parks underneath their house, and it limits the additional impact on our streets.
Right.
And we can all make the commentary that it's only for 100 days and it's only for the summer. Well, truthfully, Now that people, post-Sandy and post-COVID, when they were coming to work at home, leaving New York, leaving Philadelphia, and staying in Ventnor to work, it has created a year-round impact.
Also, just if I
Yeah,
could,
Lance, you want to comment?
only because, so the state sets residential.
I'm
site-
sorry, Lance, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, is this pick us up? So the state regulates how many parking spaces are required for every house. For every residential use, there's a parking requirement, and that's based on what's called the Residential Site Improvement Standards, RSIs. The state came in and said that, when was that, Jim, back in the early 2000s? But they set the parking standards in the late 90s, when it doesn't matter. So they tell us what number of parking spaces are required based on bedrooms. In the style of apartments or less, single family homes. So when you get up above 3 bedrooms, you're required to provide at least 2.5 parking spaces. You get up to 4, and I think it stops at 4, doesn't it? Which is ridiculous, because homes.
Well, I can tell you, Lance, they're not following that standard on the 2 homes that were built on my street, and they're under construction.
If they come in for a building permit, or they come to the planning board, they're required to show those parking spaces.
Now, also, Lance, they round down, so.
Correct.
Oh, so if it's 2.5 and they go to 2,
Right.
If it requires 2.5, or whatever the case is, the standard requires us to round down. Believe me, sir, those houses that are built have required parking in those properties.
Whether they use it or not is another
well, you
issue.
can't, yeah, I understand that. But all of the houses on my street that were built in 1929 have driveways, and their garage can't take a car. It was never really meant for one. It was basically
I have
just,
one of those.
yeah, well,
I have one of
so,
those.
but you can still get 2 cars on your property without impacting the sidewalk and or the street. But when they take out the apron and replace it to the new design, we lose a parking spot on the street.
You do, it is a trade-off. You hopefully get 2, at least on site, and you're gonna lose probably 1 or 2, 1 or 1.5 typically on a 12-foot wide curb cut. So that's stuff we look at when it comes to the planning board, or even when Roger looks at it. He's our zoning officer as well. He looks at it as the aspect to make sure that those homes that are being built without variance, that they're meeting parking requirements. If they don't meet it, they have to come to the board and show why they don't need that parking.
Okay.
We do review it, to answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir, in the green shirt.
I'm going on the same line as that other gentleman, but a little different. Hello, my name is Lee Whitman. I live at Vassar Square, apartment 1707 in Ventnor.
Please raise your hand, Carmen. Yes.
Lee Whitman,
Whitman?
Whitman, W-I-D-M-A-N.
Okay, Mr. Whitman, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairperson and member of the Planning Board. I'm standing here before you tonight regarding the 2026 Master Plan Reexamination Report. Specifically, I'm here to advocate for action to halt the conversion of our historic single-family homes into high-density duplexes. Our Master Plan Reexamination Report explicitly stresses the need to update zoning and development standards to match our current realities. As Ventnor continues to grow as a premier coastal destination, we must acknowledge that our physical space is finite. When we allow a single-family home lot to become a duplex, we are arbitrarily doubling the residency density on that piece of land. This creates a severe cascading effect on our local infrastructure. First and foremost is the issue of parking. Ventnor is already facing acute parking deficit, particularly during our peak season months. A duplex instantly injects multiple additional vehicles into the neighborhood. Because many of these converted lots lack the physical footprint to provide sufficient off-street parking, these cars end up parking on our curbs. This completely maxes out our streets and forces permanent residents to search blocks away just to park their homes. Secondly, we must look at the infrastructure crowding. Doubling the houses on single lots places an immediate compounding burden on our municipal services. We're talking about twice the amount of trash and recycling on the curbs, increasing the strain on our water and sewage system, and a significant denser public footprint. The density surge directly threatens the quality of life for everyone on the block. Finally, there is an undeniable loss of community character. The reexamination report highlights the importance of preserving Ventnor's unique identity. Our single-family neighborhoods offer an architectural charm and a quiet residential fabric that makes Ventnor desirable. Allowing spot zoning or rampant conversions slowly erodes that identity, turning cohesive neighborhoods into transient, overcrowding corridors.
Eric? First of all, the construction and replacement of a duplex on a single family home on a lot is not permitted in the city.
It seems to have,
It is
Just-
not permitted in the city, sir.
what's that?
It is not permitted in the city.
Then where are those
You have-
duplexes coming
You have
from?
an existing duplex, and it has a CSE, it's a record, and it can be proven. You can reconstruct that duplex within the city itself. Otherwise, you cannot reconstruct.
Okay, it doesn't seem
R7
that
has an
way.
additional use for that, and so on down the line. But that is the case, and that's what's been going on.
Okay.
Can I-
Then I would go with the same, then I always see these curb cuts that were not on the original duplex then. In other words, when I see, if it was officially a duplex, when I see it, it comes out with, there's a curb cut here, a curb cut here, and in the middle, there's barely a spot for parking. And when I've looked at those streets before, I have not seen those curb cuts.
And the curb cuts do not define the building. Yes, you lift the building from FEMA and other things, and you park underneath the building. There are curb cuts. There are 2 units in a building. Now, how the curb cuts are apportioned does not define a new building. It defines the curb cuts. Now, sometimes the curb cuts are put in there in a given way that they minimize the distraction of parking, because it's one lot that they're on. And when you put 2 curb cuts, put access to 2 garages for 4 cars, then you have a wider unit. It's natural, and that's the only way to get in the building. It's engineering.
But I think, can I just interject?
Yes,
what I-
sure.
What I think you're maybe referring to, and I'm just speculating.
Okay.
Is that the architectural design preferences of the 40s and 20s, when a lot of these homes were built, were single-family homes with basement apartments. That
Oh, okay.
as duplex. So you fast forward to what the architectural preferences of this day and age is, when people had more than one suit to wear and they needed more closets, but on paper, that was a duplex. And so when that changes hands for whatever multiplicity of reasons happens, the legal aspect of that building is proven to be through the city records that it was always 2 electrical services, 2 gas services,
Right.
two sets. Now that property is developed in a different way, and what you're seeing is that evolution of style. But I don't think that we can really regulate how somebody decides to build legally on a property. That's
Okay.
what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just very concerned about the trend that has been occurring.
Yeah, as a person that owns a 100-year-old home, I prefer that, but I think that not everyone, you can't regulate a preference, and you see that, and a lot of those homes aren't necessarily worth saving in a lot of ways. It takes a lot of effort to make that home the bring it back to life. It happens from time to time, but it's the rarity. So
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Zimmer, you're very observant, and you have good ideas, and thank you for appearing before us. You had a question, you asked it, but you're observant, and I like that very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just
Take care.
one comment on that.
Sure.
Because I see a lot of these across my desk. We've seen actually more deconversions from 2 units to 1 unit. So the density is actually decreased.
Oh.
Number of bedrooms may have increased, but the density, number of units is
Right.
going down.
Well, that was, I guess that other gentleman was trying to address that.
A lot of times they have that basement apartment, and if they want to do work to it, one of the conditions is they got to abandon that ground floor apartment.
Okay, thank you.
Who else would like to make a speak? Mr. Goes.
Mr. Richard Gover, correct?
Yes, sir. Richard Gober.
Good night. What's your address, sir?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Richard Gober. I live at 26 North Hillside Avenue.
All right. Mr. Gover, do you swear to affirm the testimony you're about to give the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Number one, I'm very, very happy to be here tonight. I haven't spoken for a number of years. I came to Ventnor about 47 years ago, and the first thing I heard from every realtor was don't buy north of the Dorset Bridge. That was the adage that all of the brokers used. We're very happy. First of all, I was not aware of the meeting this evening. Ms. Jaskell made us aware of it, and we have a nice monthly newsletter that might be interesting to utilize for something like this, because everyone doesn't do Facebook. Looking in the career post or the current, which I didn't even know still exists, but so it's nice to see the people that are here. I'm very proud of the fact that when the North Beach Committee got together, we changed the attitude of our neighborhood. It used to be people that would come from Media, Pennsylvania or Philadelphia and come to the beach and then go home. But then they finally got involved in the community with porch parties and things like that. I'm very impressed because I have read this very clearly. You have made it very clear, eliminate illegal conversions of existing single-family residents into multifamily structures. That I am extremely proud, as what the other gentleman said. You may recall, it was only 4 or 5 or 6 years ago, there was a property on South Hillside that was in fact a single-family home. And they came in for a variance to some of you here, and they were approved for a duplex. So we hope that is something in the past, because I'm sure that a lot of people think, oh, well, if you do that, you get a higher tax assessment. Well, since COVID, there have been a lot of people from Philly and New York that have made this permanent residence. And when I saw the numbers of the population dropping, I was a little surprised about that, because we have neighbors that are now full-time working at home. A couple other issues, but anyway, the elimination of those, I'm a grandfather duplex from my building, might be 125 or 140 years old. You may not know this, but about 20 or 30 years ago, maybe even still today, there was a state law that said you could not even park in front of your own driveway. That was a state law in this state. However, fortunately, Ventnor never ever, did anything with that. When the North Beach Committee got started, I personally walked every street. Almost 50% of the houses in North Beach do not have one parking spot that is on their own property. They're all parking on the street. So we're concerned. We obviously hear the Facebook, the Airbnb stories that we try to turn in, 6 cars pull up for a 2-bedroom apartment for a couple of days. But anyway, I'm also very impressed, and Mr. Landgraf will remember this very well. Probably for the last 15 years, I've been asking to see the streets paved, the crosswalks, instead of just at the red lights. That is really a safety. We have a little crazy law in our state. You have to give right away to people walking across the street. Very dangerous on Atlantic Avenue because there's 4 lanes of traffic. So seeing that on here, that you're going to be doing that, I'm very impressed with that as well. The density is just the most important thing that I see. I love the charm of Ventnor. I don't blame somebody that wants to buy one single family house and they want to tear it down. Boy, I wish there was more people that were doing design instead of a white 3-story house with black trim. Because I don't want Ventnor to look like Ocean City. I like the charm that we have in our community right now.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yes, you may.
The board had discussion on that more than less, it's been having discussion on that. And the board has, the discussion is that there's too many black and whites, these other things. We'd like to see the owners of homes, see different designs, different color ratios, and so on, and make the town look a lot better. We don't have architectural controls in here, but at the same time, we'd like to ask and have it done to get the word out that this is good for the city of Ventnor. And there's more styles than one style, more than one color. And we're going to proceed on that and try to get that as advise people. And it's the owners. We can't. We're not an enforcement for design.
No, of
But at
course.
the same time, we want to educate people. And Harry, your end, you hit the nail on the head. The board's already on it.
Well, I love it here. I'm proud. I was here for 3 or 4 years part-time. I live here full-time. I'm happy that I live in France 6 months out of the year. It's a different way of life. But anyway, I'm very happy to see the board here. I'm happy to read what I've read so far, and I see there is a serious emphasis on the density issue, and I personally don't think that I can think of anything else. So I appreciate your time very much, and have a good evening.
Richard, it's a
Yes.
pleasure to talk to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you, my pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Who would like to speak with next, please? Tim?
Not seeing anybody else?
Okay.
Kreischer, just give us
You
your
want
name
to
and
shorten that
address.
mic a little bit, Carmelo, and get it down?
How's that? Can everybody hear me?
Okay, good.
Mr. Kreischer, please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your address, please?
My name is Tim Kreischer. I'm a Ventnor resident. So I appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight and comment on, make suggestions on the proposed Master Plan Reexamination Report. Before discussing the report itself, I would like to thank the Planning Board for allowing residents, I hope you continue to do that, some additional time to speak beyond the 3 minutes. It hasn't been mentioned, so thank you for that. I think that the Master Plan Review is one of the most important documents that can be created by the city, and it needs to be fully vetted. You know, all too often we hear applications and redevelopment plans that it's consistent with the master plan. So I think it's important that we get it right this time. I also want to express a little bit of surprise at the makeup of the committee. Mr. Vertelli did mention he met with the Business Association and the Board of Education, but in the 2016 Master Plan Review, you met with different realtors, business people, stakeholders, and had listening groups to get their input. So, and I understand people can have their comments tonight, but it's not the same as sitting around a conference table where the free-flowing ideas and the give and take and the back and forth can sometimes enhance an idea. So I think it's a missed opportunity that the planning board did not have other residents and business people, realtors, sitting on the committee to make the original draft.
You said sit on committees to make the original draft, Tim?
Yes.
There's no original committee to make an original draft.
I'm talking about the committee that was made up of 3 planning.
The planning board, 3 people that made the work with the original draft.
And exactly, that's why I think it would have been important to have other input from the residents,
That's what we're
the
getting at.
realtors. Again, they have their comment, the opportunity to comment tonight, but it's not the same as sitting around a conference table, participating in a discussion, give and take, back and forth, a flow, that sometimes just some more input and tweaking something just a little bit makes the plan much better. Just in my opinion, that it's a missed opportunity not to have included people in the original draft of this document.
And we subscribe to the Sunshine Law. We have all our public meetings, everything we do is transparent in the public. So at that point in time, we have discussions with people that are from the public, that we go in and that are meaningful other than somebody giving their opinion. And they can come in, we have meetings like this,
When were these public meetings held that people had, opportunity to input on this draft?
The planning board meetings, we had three.
We've had meetings over the last three.
And I think, Mr. Rotella, you said there was 4 committee meetings?
Yes.
Again, it's just my opinion, we don't have to get into debate. You disagree with me, I gave you my opinion.
Okay, that's
There's
fine.
no sense in going back and forth. I think it's a missed opportunity. You don't. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I thank the city and the planning board. I posted on social media that it was important to have as much ideas possible presented, that Zoom is not available in this building, but it suggested that you put it on YouTube, which you did. So I want to thank you for doing that, even though I understand there may be some difficulties with YouTube right now. I've spent considerable amount of time reviewing Ventnor's Master Plan Report as well as other cities and giving considerable thought to Ventnor's past, present, and future, and have thoughts and suggestions. So I hope you will be patient with me as I will exceed the 3 minutes, which I already have, and not interrupt me with, what's your point, or you're done. I'm sure when you've had enough time of hearing me that you will let me know, and I'll stop at that point. One of the report's themes is improving communication with the business community. It references the Ventnor Business Association providing a forum for dialogue and recommends enhancing cooperation between the city and local businesses. Those are worthwhile goals. However, during the public hearing on the Ventnor Avenue School redevelopment plan, I specifically asked whether the business community had been consulted, whether additional restaurant capacity could be supported. The response was that the plan had been public for some time and no one from the business community had come forward. That approach places the burden on the businesses to monitor every action taken by the city. Instead, I would recommend language stating that the city will regularly consult with the business community regarding projects and policy decisions that may significantly impact businesses. That shifts the responsibility where it belongs on the city, and recognize that during the busy summer months, many business owners simply do not have time to monitor municipal proceedings. It mentions a special improvement district. I support exploring a special improvement district, providing assessments paid by property owners are not excessive and used to market and promote businesses rather than replacing basic municipal services such as streetscaping, trash collection, or street cleaning, thus shifting those responsibilities from the city to the special improvement district. Previously, I suggested the city also look at and examine establishing revenue allocation districts where increased tax revenues generated from redevelopment could fund public improvements within those districts. Since this concept does not appear anywhere in the report, I would assume that there was no discussion, that there was discussions and it was deemed not workable, or that there had been no discussions, but I'd be curious in that. Parking remains one of Ventnor's greatest challenges. While the report recommends eliminating certain parking requirements downtown and relying more heavily on shared parking agreements, it offers little explanation of how that would actually work. Would shared parking agreements be required or merely encouraged, and under what circumstances? With parking being such a major issue, I believe the report should be considerably more proactive and recommend exploring several additional ideas, including requiring applicants receiving parking variances to contribute to a municipal parking improvement fund, reviewing every existing parking designation, including loading zones, resident parking, and time limit spaces to determine whether each remains necessary. I do think there is an opportunity to expand the 15-minute zones in the beginning of business districts to facilitate quick run in and out visits to businesses without worrying about going on the app. The 2016 report recommended a comprehensive parking strategy. I'm not aware of this being done, and if it has not, I suggest this be done immediately. There are several areas along Ventnor and Atlantic Avenue where parking spaces are marked out to help prevent taking up multiple parking spaces. I recommend this be done all along these streets and part of Dorset Avenue as well. It is my understanding that while you are limited to the time you can put on the meter, you can use your phone to add time. If this is accurate, I would like to see you revise the parking app so prime business districts cannot be occupied all day by beachgoers. thereby preserving turnover that benefits local businesses. A parking space can accommodate 6 to 10 visits per hour. If a beachgoer parks for 6 hours, then 36 to 60 business visits are eliminated. Exploring grants for acquisition of strategically located properties for future municipal parking, similar to the initiative undertaken in Margate. One such site would be the empty lot at Weymouth and Ventnor Avenues that is set empty for a period. Evaluating whether the Newport Avenue municipal lot could better serve businesses through a gated pavement system that allow merchants to validate customer parking. Landscape and public improvements. I support strengthening requirements that preserve curb planting strips and landscaping. However, when landscaping requirements are waived or reduced in variances, I believe applicants should contribute financially towards landscaping elsewhere in the city. This addresses a fairness issue of why some have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to beautify Ventnor and others avoid the cost. And it would also establish a dedicated funding source for beautification projects. Redevelopment. One of my greatest concerns involves a recommendation for a redevelopment area extending from Portland Avenue to Troy, permitting slightly higher density mixed-use development. This report never defines what slightly higher density actually means. This type of language is exactly why people were suspicious of the redevelopment plan for the 2 school sites. Now there is a fear the language slightly higher density gives the developer the motivation to come in for mixed use and tear down the Ventnor Avenue school building. And we will hear repeatedly from the city and the planning board during that process, the applicant's plan is consistent with the master plan. While the redevelopment plan in this area may be beneficial, myself, along with many others, would like this block to be deleted from this language. Capital improvements. The report proposes an ambitious capital improvement program. As the city estimated the cost of these projects, more importantly, as the city prioritized them. The annual debt statement dated 12/31/25 shows Ventnor has the highest debt than any other city in Atlantic County other than Atlantic City. With this level of debt, can the city afford all these improvements? This is especially true when you're on record of saying the entire boardwalk in disrepair and needs reconstruction. The city was successful in securing a substantial grant, thanks to Mr. Rotella, for the current reconstruction, but needs to rely on future state grants for the remaining part. With the current condition of the state's financial picture and the reduction in such popular programs as Stay New Jersey and Anchor, there are no guarantees of future funding for such projects. So to ensure we retain our iconic boardwalk, I'd like to see that report prioritize these improvements with the understanding that the future conditions may alter those priorities. Commercial districts. The report continues to support mixed-use development within commercial districts. I believe this deserves a broader discussion among the planning board and the public before becoming a master plan policy. Mixed-use development certainly brings residents closer to business, but it also increases parking demand while reducing available commercial parking through curb cuts and driveways. The board should carefully evaluate whether continued residential expansion within business districts ultimately strengthens or weakens the long-term viability of these districts. We see this with the project on Ventnor Avenue between Newport and New Haven Avenues, where mixed use is being developed. There is a question whether the off-street parking is sufficient, and if it is, so it remains critical on-street parking space to accommodate the curb cuts is being removed. It is also experienced on Dorset Avenue, where 2 townhomes is removing the critical off-street parking. Tourism. The report encourages expanding year-round tourism. The City Concert Series has been extremely successful, and thanks and congratulations to the Special Events Committee that put them on. However, I believe there should at least be a discussion about whether some of these events would generate greater economic benefit during the shoulder season by attracting visitors and bringing back second homeowners for a weekend they normally may not be here during the months when businesses need additional customers. Education campus. The report proposes complementary uses for the Ventnor Education Complex. I think you recognize that. When we built the building originally, it was for 1,200 students. We were down to 500. I would like to see the city fast-track discussions with the Board of Education to explore alternative use for the unused space. The report calls for re-examining of regulations governing commercial districts, especially pertaining to streetscaping, placemaking, and outdoor dining. I hope there is no intention on eliminating outdoor dining, and what this referencing is to adopt my previous suggestion that restaurants be required to provide planters or other decorative objects to enhance the overall appearance of our commercial corridors. Many do this. One who I think has done a great job with this is Rustico at Ventnor and New Haven Avenue. Zoning amendments. Many of the proposed zoning amendments are difficult for the average resident to understand. Because these changes could significantly affect future development, I encourage the board to provide plain language explanations tonight describing both the intended benefits and the possible impacts. The one bullet in this section that I find interesting is the one that states, consider implementing design standards for new construction to ensure a cohesive fit with the city's existing housing stock and the current aesthetics of the city neighborhoods. I strongly agree with this, but I fear the damage to maintaining the current aesthetics is already done and irreparable. Tax abatements. The report outlines existing tax abatement programs, but never asks whether they remain as necessary. That discussion should occur. Following Superstorm Sandy, tax abatements may have been an important redevelopment tool. Today, the market is considerably different. The city should evaluate whether abatements are still needed, whether they should be limited to certain redevelopment objectives, or whether eligibility should depend upon compliance with architectural and neighborhood design standards. Mr. Cook, you talked about you can't enforce what people look like, you can only talk to them about it. Maybe if we use a tax abatement program only for those that conform to an architectural design that is approved by the city, that may help eliminate these big McMansions and these square boxes that was mentioned, white with black trim. Well, I've talked about what's in the report. I'm also concerned about what's not in the report. Most notably, there is no discussion of a floor area ratio. FAR, when combined with setbacks, height limitations, lot coverage requirements, landscaping standards, and open space requirements, provide communities with an effective way to manage building intensity while preserving neighborhood character. The report acknowledges concerns regarding neighborhood character, but omits one of the planning profession's most effective tools for protecting it. Many cities have adopted a FAR, and they provide an opportunity for vendors to learn their successes, failures, and adopt their best practices. Likewise, I believe the planning board should reevaluate existing setback and bulk regulations to determine whether standards developed years ago remain appropriate given today's elevated homes and significantly large structures that create a tunnel effect up and down our street. Regulations only work if variances remain the exception rather than the rule. Too often, incremental variances gradually erode zoning standards until they are meaningless. I think it's time for the planning board to adopt a philosophy, build the home you can and not the one you want, and save variances for unique situations. Perhaps the most important issue I think that is absent from this report which is mentioned, but the continued decline of Ventnor's year-round population and the need to develop a strategy to address this is not in there. The report shows that non-resident property owners now own more than half the city's housing stock. That trend has profound implications. A shrinking year-round population eventually weakens neighborhood stability, reduces school enrollment, challenges local businesses, and increases pressure to convert commercial property into additional residential development. If left unaddressed, Ventnor risks becoming a community that thrives only for a few summer months a year. I believe the master plan should include specific policies encouraging housing affordable to local working families, incentives for year-round residency, redevelopment strategies support permanent residents, and stronger protection for neighborhood integrity. It appears that the city are okay with the trend to second homeowners since there is nothing in the report that recommends addressing this issue. If you are concerned about this, I recommend you begin a discussion immediately and include it in the report. This conversation can't wait another 10 years, but needs to start yesterday. The longer we go without recognizing the problem and dealing with it, the more impossible the task becomes. Future redevelopment of institutional properties. The report also fails to anticipate future development of churches and other institutional properties. As year-round population and congregations decline, these sites may become redevelopment opportunities. The city should establish planning policies now to ensure any future redevelopment respects neighborhood character, limits excessive density, and avoids repeating mistakes made elsewhere in the city. We experienced this at the St. James School and Commons site, where we now have 6 townhomes crammed into the site, and more critically, the curb cuts in their location remove much needed on-street parking. Historic preservation. I'm disappointed the report contains virtually no discussion about preserving Ventnor's history. While our community has relatively few historic buildings, preserving our history extends far beyond architecture. Our history includes photographs, documents, oral histories, traditions, public education, and recognition of people and events that shaped our community. The report shall acknowledge preserving the community history as an important planning objective. Likewise, important resources such as St. Leonard's neighborhood and our City Hall deserve specific recognition. In closing, I would like to quote a goal from the 2016 Master Plan Reexamination. Each of Ventnor neighborhoods has a unique charm. Ventnor should continue to ensure that the diversity of housing types is offered with respect to the city's resources and the characteristics of Ventnor's unique neighborhoods. I respectfully suggest that many recent development decisions have moved us away from that goal rather than closer to it. The purpose of this re-exam should not simply be to document change. It should establish a vision that protects the qualities that make Ventnor unique while planning responsibility for the future. I appreciate the tremendous amount of work that went into this report. My comments are often in the spirit of stimulating thought-provoking conversations and improving the plan. I sincerely hope many of these recommendations will be discussed and considered before the report is finalized. Finally, on a minor technical note, the reference on page 4 of the Atlantic City's master plan should of course be corrected in Ventnor City's master plan. Again, I thank you for indulging me and allowing me to go well past the 3 minutes and listen to me. I appreciate it. I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Kim. Anyone else who wants to make comment? Yes, sir.
My name is Ben Yelowitz. I live at 1 North Nashville in Ventnor, North Beach. I just wanted to.
What was your address?
1 North Nashville. Just wanted to.
Your last name?
Yelowitz.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a couple of quick questions and a comment. First of all, Tim, I thank you for your thoughtful and insightful commentary there. And I do agree with the need for future tax abatements. People building $2 and $4 million houses don't need a tax abatement. I mean, I live in a tax abated house, but the tax abatement is now gone. I didn't build it, and I didn't care, didn't buy it because I had a tax abatement. But people building these new houses today in these short communities do not need a tax abatement. You know, us, the residents, and I am a full-time resident of Ventnor City, you know, I'm appalled at the size of the tax increases we're going to be bearing because of these tax abatements. And these people that are building these houses certainly can afford to pay them.
That's just wrong.
You don't think so?
Well, the relationship you're making is not true.
Right. We can have a sidebar conversation.
Okay.
On that. It's not for here, but that's an inaccurate statement.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and the second question I have is relative to these new height standards on raising homes. Is that going to be part of the master plan, or is that a FEMA issue?
That'll be a FEMA issue,
Right.
Assuming it's implemented next July.
Right.
Once it's implemented, then obviously the planning board and obviously the commissioners will start to look at new standards.
And how will that affect any projects under development right now? You know, if they were permitted now and this goes into effect and they're not completed by next year, or they're just getting permitted, how would
Fully
that?
permitted by July of 27.
They would have to be permitted.
Grandfathered, yes.
Okay, so it would be grandfathered.
Yes.
And then you're saying it's another 4 feet higher?
That's what's proposed right now.
Is that going to raise the height restriction as well? Because right now I think we're restricted to 38 or 39 feet.
That would be part of the new standards.
So the new standard with these houses, new homes could be 44 feet high, possibly?
Would be.
Okay.
That's something we look at. And
Yeah.
I know one of the things, so I represent Brigantine, like Tim represents. I'm sorry. So when Brigantine was preparing for those rules to go into effect this July, we actually looked at that to see how, do we want to limit the height above base flood elevation? There was arguments, not to let it go to that 44 feet, whatever above grade is gonna be 55.
Right, that's what I'm thinking, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, it's gonna be 55 feet high, they're gonna be like a small
So
hotel.
that's a discussion we have to have when and if those rules get, employed.
And that's gonna also, impact land density and everything else. It's a mess.
And what comes up too, and Joe can verify this, fire suppression. If somebody's not too much here, they're bringing team a little bit bigger lots, and that fire truck's out in the middle of the street, they can't get to the back of that house with a ladder. You gotta get a bigger ladder truck. Where are we getting a bigger ladder truck? Around the streets in Ventnor. So it's all those things incorporated. So these are the arguments that Jim and myself and other folks, the mayor, have made to DEP as to why you can't do this. You can't jack these homes up another 4 feet based on a study that Rutgers itself has even said, yeah, some of the numbers might have been a little off. So, I mean, it's ridiculous to think about it. We're hopeful that Governor Sherrill will realize this and understand that they had somebody in DEP that was on a little road. That person's gone now, so we've made arguments, we've discussions. Cape County sued the state of New Jersey on it. I think Atlantic County jumped in at the last minute.
I don't think so.
Maybe into some of the discussions, but maybe not the litigation.
Yes.
So it's a problem for short communities. It will significantly increase building heights. It will significantly increase cost to build. And that's problematic across the board. So we've looked at ways to try and stop those rules from happening. But we would have to evaluate whether or not we want to allow folks to go to that third story. It might be 2 stories above the garage now, and just limit it to that.
I guess you could do that by limiting the amount. You could probably eliminate that third floor by not having the setbacks, I guess, on the second floor and the third floor that you used to.
There's a lot of different ways to do it. I know Tim mentioned FAR, floor area ratio.
Right.
That's the way to do it. We've discussed that inside the master plan. We have discussion here in Ventnor to ways to shrink these buildings in as they go up.
Right.
So some of the design standards that Jim did put in the master plan was encouraging things to not have sheer walls going up 35 feet on the side of the lot line. So things of that we're trying to work with.
Well, the other thing with these new elevation plans and everything. So before when you're redevelop an existing property and its existing footprint, so now you're saying you're going to have to raise. If you want to raise a home up, an existing home up, and sometimes it's going to be cost prohibitive and it won't even make any economic sense to do so. So they would have to go up 4 feet higher than the current standards.
If you're going to elevate, yes.
If you're going to elevate.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you for your time and thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, you have to understand that sometimes the rules are in conflict with their own rules.
That's what it sounds like from what you just said about the Rutgers study.
Yeah, so, New Jersey is a very regulated state, to say the least. And now you're feeling the sting of regulation. And when the reality comes home, it comes home big time. So, and it's called representation, it's called being exploited without representation. You swallow it, or you choke on it, one or the other. So, with that, any other person that wants to make a comment?
Mr. Cook, just one question. I heard you mention that the insurance would be 25% less flood insurance.
Currently, the city is part of the community rating system under FEMA. Basically, anyone that has national flood insurance and a 5P flood insurance, on your bill, you will see a 25% discount. And that is because the city is doing aggressively doing other things in order to keep that discount. Most towns don't have 25% discount.
I was wondering if all these companies were doing that on their own or not.
No, it's part of the federal program.
All right, thank you, sir.
So everybody knows is that the more homes that are compliant under FEMA, the better the city gets in a CRS rating. And that CRS rating is basically a calculation point put on your flood insurance. The better the rating, the lower the flood insurance. So the more compliant a community is in complying with FEMA requirements, the better the insurance gets for all residents. And that's the way the federal government has to set up. Not the city, it's the federal government. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Steve Giuseppe from Margate.
Steve, swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Thanks.
So you mentioned the fee, that 25%, that's under FEMA insurance. So
National
that's,
Flood Insurance Program.
right, but that's not with any, my insurance.
So if you have a third-party insurance provider, you're not gonna get that discount. You have to be part of the National Flood Insurance Program.
So a good question is, how many people have FEMA insurance?
Probably majority,
I think, yeah,
because it's subsidized.
okay.
So most people have it.
I just want to be clear on that, thanks.
That's interesting. So I just got a quote on a property I'm about to acquire, and the national flood insurance was higher than private flood insurance by about 50%.
It depends on what the coverage is. See, with the NFIP flood insurance, if your home is damaged, it can provide funding for elevation,
Right.
in addition to funding for improvements. Usually third-party insurance does not provide that. So, you're not getting the same coverage, so you need to look at that.
Okay. Is there any further comments? Lance or Mayor, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good.
Board members, any comments?
No, well, I'll just thank you for the hard work. I think that Ventnor has, like any town, a combination of challenges and successes. These are the long-term effects. I appreciate everything everybody brought up. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what the master plan can do, and I think one of the things that we as an administration have tried to do is to set the groundwork for us to be prepared for grants and the taxpayer-friendly things that the master plan identifies are setting us up for those things like the $90 million in grants over the last 10 years. And the nature of taxes and the nature of expenses are things like that are our day-to-day, our payrolls. Those aren't things that our grants and our can apply towards. So those are different fixed costs. We can talk about how the abatements were brought up, and I don't want to linger on that, but they're not a free ride. In a lot of ways, they are an example of how those taxes can be, our non-performing lots are now going to be performing lots. So the tax base that we have, all these things, all these positive things encourages a wider tax base. The problem is inflation and other things outpace the kinds of things that we can do with that tax base. So an analogy is that we're just better off with them than we are without them at the end of the day.
Just to sum up, thanks Jim for well done job. It's a lot of work putting these together, done it, doing it. And understand that this is called a reexamination report because the original master plan was 2000 something. This doesn't change that, it updates it. So the goals and objectives that are still there from those original plans, you talk about the history and the historical nature, that original master plan is not, this doesn't take any of that out. This looks at the problems and issues that we have in the city, updates them, and says, all right, we're having a parking issue, let's look at that, look at different ways to address that. And Jim went through those issues that we're having, and then you have new issues that come up, and then in 10 years we'll address those issues. How did we react? That's what these documents are for. So it doesn't throw away the last 20 years of master plans. It's an addition to. Some communities will redo an entire master plan, and that's a couple of year process. I'm trying to think of the last one I think I did was in 2000 in Brigantine. And Jim, you've done one over there as well since then. So you don't do those because they're very expensive and time consuming, but just know that this is it's kind of a section of the overall master plan. You add this as an addendum to that document. So it's a living document. We can always amend it. You don't have to wait 10 years. You can look at it and you can find something's going wrong and say, hey, we got to try something else. So I think it's a pretty very well-written document, and allows us to, and there was some statements tonight that I think we can add in there.
Yeah.
I've been looking at that FAR for a while for short communities. It's worked up in Collingswood, it's helped them a little bit, so it might be a way to look at that. So I'll stop talking, we've been here for 2 hours.
Just in comment is that, when working with these ordinances and so on, everything sounds very, very simple when you have this little compartmentalized, and this one. But when you start putting it together, you find out that some of the things just don't work together. And it becomes a work in progress. Like years ago, the board tried to actually change the setbacks, increase the setbacks. They found out one thing. All the buildings were built, many of them based on the 1928 ordinance. So you have all these structures in town that everyone becomes non-conforming. So if you have a good idea that starts out, but then you want to increase all the setbacks. But then all of a sudden you find out, wait a minute, the city's already built. You can't just do that. So there's limitations and things that you have built into the cake, so to speak. And we've got to work with that. It's a great city. It's a lovely city. But there's things, and it presents so many opportunities. And the lifestyle that we have here is something we want to capitalize on and preserve. And that's the important thing. But things that sometimes are very obvious when you actually get on this side and try to do them become unworkable. So you have to work out what the actual system that actually works. And so sometimes we don't look as good as we like to look, but this is how it has to work out, because that's the way, that's the deal, that's the hand we've been dealt. But I have to thank every one of you for coming this evening. You've been great. You've been patient. And most of all, there's been good contributions. So with that, I applaud you again. It's been a very enjoyable evening. And the board members, I think, profited from you being here. And I hope you profited as well. So with that, I'm going to call for adjournment, unless there's other comment.
Yeah, before we do that, next steps, Jim, are what? Are we going to have another meeting? Just
Next
set
steps
a date
is,
now? Or
we will meet with the committee and go over these comments, make changes, make some revisions.
I think our next meeting is going to be August 24th, that we're going to have at the Commission Chambers in City Hall. And we'll be discussing things again.
does that give you enough time?
As long as Jim can get everything prepared in time to go up and we have discussion. So this is, we're not going to rush this and just get it through. We're going to go through a good clean path. So with that, that's the agenda for the future, and that's the next step. With members, anybody have any further comments? May I have a motion for adjournment, please? Second. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.